Hey everyone, tonight's video. It's one of those topics that's hard to fully explain. We're getting into stories about driving late at night, long, empty roads, and people staying in mobile homes out in the middle of nowhere. These stories are seriously unsettling because you can't figure out what actually happened, and that's what makes them worse. So turn the lights down, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Also, thank you so much for all the support lately. I really appreciate every single one of you. I don't move around a lot, but that year I kinda had to. Just money stuff and work slowing down where I was. I'd been doing small jobs, fixing trailers and RV hookups, things like that. It pays all right when people actually need you, but it's not steady. So I ended up living out of my own mobile home for a while, just taking jobs wherever I could find them. It wasn't as bad as it sounds. Yeah, it gets lonely, but I actually got used to the quiet. You wake up, make coffee on a little propane stove, step outside, and it's just nothing. Wind or bugs or whatever's around. That week I had been somewhere in, I think it was Harlan County. You pass more empty land than houses. There were these old coal areas out there, leftovers. Dirt roads, rusted equipment, signs that don't even make sense anymore because whatever they were warning about is long gone. I wasn't working that day. I had finished up a small job fixing a guy's generator hookup and he paid me cash, so I figured I'd just find a place to park for the night instead of driving back toward town. Gas wasn't cheap and I didn't feel like dealing with people anyway. I found this open area off a dirt road, kind of wide and flat. It looked like it used to be some kind of access point for trucks or equipment. Off in the distance, there was this tall structure, like a water tower, but not the normal kind you see near towns. This one looked older, thinner, more like a metal frame with a tank on top. Hard to explain. It was probably part of the old mining setup. There were trees past it, like a thick tree line, and everything around just felt unused. Not abandoned in a creepy way at first, just empty. Like no one had needed the place in years. I parked facing away from the tower. I always try to position the trailer so I can leave easily if I need to. Just a habit. I leveled it out a bit, hooked up my small generator, and made something to eat. Canned stuff heated up. It was getting dark while I was eating. That time where everything starts turning gray and you can't really see details anymore. The air got colder too, faster than I expected. I had to grab a hoodie from inside. I spent most of the evening just sitting inside, on my phone, trying to get signal. It was bad out there, like one bar that kept dropping. I watched part of a downloaded video, then just sat there doing nothing for a while. That happens more than you'd think when you're alone like that. Time just stretches. After a bit, something caught my attention. I thought it was just the wind catching on the trailer. It sounded like someone crying, like someone weeping. I even turned off the little fan I had running inside because I thought it was making some weird noise. But when it went quiet again, I could still hear it. It was low, like it was coming from far away, but it was definitely there, and it didn't sound like an animal. I've heard coyotes, foxes, all that. This wasn't that. It sounded human, or close enough that it made me uncomfortable. Maybe someone else out there, maybe another camper, but I hadn't seen anyone on that road for hours. The thing is, it sounded like someone was hurt. That's what got me. It wasn't just crying, it had that kind of weak, uneven sound, like someone trying to breathe while crying. And I kept thinking, what if someone actually needs help out there? So I stepped outside, and everything looked darker, even with the moon out. I was just trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. It was coming from the direction of that tower. I didn't like that. I don't know why, it just didn't sit right. But at the same time, it wasn't that far. Close enough that if someone was actually hurt, I could at least check. I started walking toward it. The ground was uneven, kind of gravel mixed with dirt, and there were patches where weeds had grown through. My flashlight wasn't great, but it was enough to see where I was stepping. The crying got a little clearer as I got closer, more defined. Like I could tell it was definitely coming from one spot. When I got like halfway there, I saw something near the base of the tower. It moved slightly. I stopped walking. I stood there for a bit just watching, trying to figure out what I was looking at. And then it kind of shifted again, and I realized it looked like a person, like someone on the ground. It looked like a woman. She was kind of hunched over, or maybe on her knees, I couldn't tell. Her head was down and her hair was hanging forward. I couldn't see her face. That feeling hit me right there. Something's not right. But at the same time I thought, okay, maybe she's hurt. Maybe she fell. So I called out, "Hey, are you okay?" or something like that. She didn't respond. The crying stopped though. The sudden silence. It felt like everything just paused. I took a few more steps forward. She moved. It was fast, way too fast. She kind of shifted up and then just walked quickly toward the tree line behind the tower. It didn't look normal. I don't mean like unnatural in a crazy way, just the way she moved didn't match someone who was just crying on the ground. It was too smooth, too quick, and then she was gone, disappeared into the trees. Part of me thought she got scared and ran off because I showed up. That would make sense, I guess, but something off. I was about to turn back, started stepping backward, thinking, okay, not my problem, she's fine, just leave it. And I heard the crying again. It was so weird and creepy. This time it wasn't coming from where she'd been. It was coming from somewhere else. Still near the tower, but off to the side, like it had shifted positions. I felt it. I don't know how to explain this. It felt like something was pulling me forward, not physically grabbing me. It was just that feeling in your body where you're leaning towards something without meaning to, like your balance is off or your mind is pushing you closer. I remember taking a step forward without really deciding to. And that's where I started realizing something was seriously wrong, because I didn't want to go any closer. But I was still moving. It wasn't like I was being dragged across the ground or anything like that. Nothing physical like that, but my body just kept leaning forward. Like when you're tired and you kind of drift without thinking, except I wasn't tired. I was wide awake at that point. My chest felt tight, and I remember my hand gripping the flashlight harder. I took another step, and I actually stopped myself that time, like I had to force it. I planted my foot and just stayed there, kind of stiff, trying to understand what I was doing. The crying kept going, same soft, uneven sound, and now it felt closer again, even though I hadn't really moved much. I said something again, I think. I don't remember, but it was louder. Like I was trying to make it normal, like if I talked, then it would just turn into a regular situation. I started backing up for real. Then the crying stopped again, and it didn't fade out or trail off like before. It just cut, like someone hit a switch. I turned around, started walking faster back toward my trailer. The ground felt uneven under my feet more than before, like I was suddenly aware of every rock and dip. My breathing got louder too, and I remember thinking I needed to calm down, like I was overreacting, like this was just some weird person messing with me. I made it halfway back, and heard something moving beside me. Not behind me, beside me. It was hard to place at first, like my brain didn't want to line it up correctly, but it sounded like something keeping pace with me, off to my right side, a little ways out. Not on the ground though. That's the part that didn't make sense. I turned my head, enough to catch it from the corner of my eye, and I wish I hadn't. There was something there, moving exactly parallel to me. It wasn't on the ground, it was higher up, like level with my upper body. Maybe higher, I don't know. I didn't look directly at it long enough to measure anything. It was just there, keeping the same speed as me like it had been doing it the whole time. The shape didn't make sense. I couldn't see a full body. What I saw, what stuck, was the face, or the mouth. It was open, way too wide, not like a normal open mouth. It was stretched vertically, like from top to bottom, way farther than it should go. And there were teeth. I remember that. Just too many, too visible. It didn't make any sound. That's what got me. It was right there, close enough that I should have heard breathing or movement or something. But it was silent, completely silent, even though it was moving. I don't think I fully turned my head. I think I just caught enough of it from the side, and that was enough. I screamed. I didn't mean to. It just came out. And then I ran. I didn't look back again. Not even once. I knew it was still there because I could feel it keeping pace with me. Same distance, same side, like it wasn't chasing me, just matching me. My legs were hitting uneven ground, and I almost tripped more than once. I remember one step where my foot slid on loose gravel, and I thought I was going down, and I just didn't stop. I kept going, barely catching myself. The whole time I had that feeling on my right side, like something was right there, not touching me, just there. I don't know how long it lasted. I ran straight to the door and got inside. I slammed the door and locked it. I knew a lock wouldn't do anything if whatever that was actually wanted to get in. My hands were shaking. I couldn't even hold the flashlight steady. I turned off the inside lights. Don't know why I did that. I moved to the small window near the front and looked out, keeping most of myself out of sight. The area outside was darker now. The moon had shifted, or clouds moved in, I'm not sure. Everything looked flatter, harder to make out. I didn't see anything. Nothing near the tower either, at least not that I could tell from that angle. I stayed like that for a while, just watching, waiting for something to move. After a few minutes, I told myself I was leaving. I didn't care how late it was or how tired I wasn't staying there. That wasn't a place you stay and try to sleep after something like that. I started the engine as fast as I could. Got it moving. Once I hit the main road, drove way faster than I should have. I didn't even realize how far I'd gone until I started seeing houses again, lights in windows. I didn't tell anyone what happened. I just told myself it didn't make sense, so there was no point trying to explain it. I left that whole area the next morning, and I know how this sounds. I've gone over it in my head more times than I can count. Whatever that was, it kept pace with me. Exactly. Staying right there, like it knew exactly how fast I was going to move before I did. This happened a couple years ago. So back then I was doing a lot of driving jobs, not a company, just helping people move stuff, deliveries. A friend of mine, well, like someone I knew through another guy, he got into an accident. Those bad crashes that mess you up enough that you can't really keep living where you were. He was moving in with his girlfriend after that, somewhere a few hours out. He asked if I could move his stuff, just the bigger things he couldn't deal with himself. I said yeah because I had access to a semi at the time through a guy I worked with, and it wasn't even that much stuff. Kind of weird for someone moving their whole life. The house I picked the stuff up from was in this quiet neighborhood. It was afternoon when I got there. His place felt empty, like he had already mentally left before actually leaving. He had things packed in boxes already, some furniture wrapped up with that thin plastic wrap that never really holds right. There was this tarp too, like a thick one, dark green I think, that he told me to use to cover everything once I loaded it. I remember asking why because the weather was fine, no rain or anything, and he said just do it, it'll keep things together. I didn't really argue, just did it. We talked a bit while I was loading, but it wasn't a normal conversation. He kept losing track of what he was saying. Like he'd start telling me where something goes and then stop halfway and look at the wall like he forgot what the sentence was. I figured it was the accident messing with him or just stress. By the time I finished loading everything, it was dark. I tied the tarp down over the stuff in the back, checked it a couple times because I didn't want anything flying off on the highway. He watched me do it, watched every knot I tied, which, again, I didn't think much of then, but now it kind of sticks out. Anyway, I left his place probably around maybe 8-ish, something like that. The drive was a few hours, mostly highway with some stretches that got pretty empty. You know those long roads where there's just trees or nothing, and maybe a gas station every so often? I remember stopping once pretty early into the drive at a small store, one of those places that's half gas station, half random groceries. I pulled the truck into the side because it was big and I didn't want to block anything. There weren't many cars there. The lights from the store were that harsh white kind that makes everything look a little washed out. I went in, grabbed a couple drinks and some snacks because I hadn't eaten much. Nothing weird happened inside. Just a cashier, didn't really say much. I was in there like 5 minutes. When I came back out though, I remember this because it's the first thing that didn't feel right. As I got close to the truck, I heard a sound, like a thud. It sounded like it came from the back, like from under the tarp or somewhere around there. I stopped for a second, holding the bag, trying to figure out if I actually heard it or if it was something else, like maybe something settling. I walked around to the back, looked at the tarp. Everything seemed tied down the same way I left it. Nothing looked out of place. I even put my hand on it, like pressing down a bit, just to see if anything shifted. Nothing did. I didn't hear the sound again, so I just kind of shrugged it off. I told myself something probably shifted inside, like a box falling over or something coming loose. I didn't think about it too hard. I got back in the truck and started driving again. I even forgot about the sound. But like 20 minutes later, I started hearing something again. I thought it was just the load settling again. The road wasn't perfectly smooth, and sometimes when you hit certain speeds, things in the back move a little. I turned the radio down to listen better. It was like something pressing against the tarp from underneath and then stopping. That's when I started thinking maybe I didn't tie something down properly. Something heavier shifted, and now it was loose back there. I didn't want it breaking or sliding around more, so I decided I'd pull over and check it. The road I was on at that point was pretty empty. I found a spot where I could safely pull over, like a wider shoulder area. When I stopped, everything went quiet. You know how sometimes when you expect a sound, it just doesn't happen again? That's exactly what it felt like whatever was making the noise just stopped. I almost just drove off again. I should have. But I kept thinking if something's actually loose back there, it could cause a bigger problem later. So I grabbed my phone for the flashlight and stepped out. It was really dark out there, just my truck lights and a bit of moonlight. I walked to the back. Normally I just go, check, fix, done. But I remember feeling something. The tarp looked the same, still tied down, no obvious movement. I was listening, and I heard it. Something under the tarp, like something adjusting its weight. Maybe it's an animal? But I tied everything down pretty tight, and also, how would it even get in there in the first place? I walked closer and grabbed one side of the tarp where it was tied down. My hands were kind of stiff. I untied one of the knots, then another, and the whole time I kept expecting whatever was under there to move more, like react to me being there. But it just stayed still again. I thought I imagined the whole thing, and lifted the tarp up just enough to peek under it. I didn't even understand what I was looking at. It was dark under there, and the light from my phone wasn't hitting everything evenly. I saw the boxes, the wrapped furniture, and then something that didn't match any of it. I lifted the tarp a bit higher, just kind of reacting, and it moved. A man, like an actual person, shifted suddenly and then kind of pushed himself forward out from under everything. It wasn't like he jumped out fast at first. He unfolded himself in a weird way, like he'd been curled up in a space that didn't fit a person. I yelled, and he reacted. He came out fast then. He stumbled forward off the back of the truck, almost slipping, and I backed up without thinking. My phone light was shaking all over the place, so I only got quick flashes of him. He was really skinny. His arms looked too long or just too bony, I don't know. His clothes were dirty, like layers of dirt, and there was this smell that hit me when he got close. It was strong, like he hadn't washed in a long time. He didn't say anything, no words, just breathing, heavy but not panicked like you'd expect. I remember seeing something in his hand, something that caught the light. It was small but shiny, like metal. I couldn't tell, but it looked sharp. He stepped toward me and I felt scared. I shouted at him again, like trying to scare him off. I didn't even think about running right away. I just reacted like that. He paused for a split second, and then he just ran, off to the side, into the dark. There were trees or something out there. I couldn't see. He moved fast, though, faster than I expected for someone who looked like that. And then he was just gone. My ears were ringing a bit, probably from yelling. I didn't chase him. There was no way I was going after someone like that into the dark, especially when I didn't even know where exactly he went. I just backed up, went around the truck, and got in as fast as I could. I locked the doors. I didn't even fix the tarp. I just kind of threw it back over as best as I could and drove. Probably not the smartest thing, but I just wanted to get out of there. I got to my friend's place. His girlfriend's house was in a quieter area. There were a few lights on inside when I pulled up. He came out to help unload, moving slow because of his injuries. I think I said, "There's something I need to tell you," but I didn't even know how to start explaining it yet. We went to the back to start unloading, and that's when we both noticed it. The tarp had shifted more than I realized while driving. When we pulled it back, there were dark spots on it. There were stains, kind of dried in some places, and other stuff, like wet patches that didn't make sense. My friend just stared at it. Then he looked at me like I was supposed to explain it. I told him what happened. He didn't interrupt me much, just listened, but his face changed while I was talking, like he was realizing something separately. He climbed up a bit to look closer at the truck bed, even though I told him not to. There were marks back there too. Scratches, like something had been dragging or shifting around a lot more than just boxes moving. And there was, I don't know how to say this, but there were signs someone had been there for a while. Not just jumped in at the store, like longer than that. That doesn't make any sense, because I loaded that truck myself. I was there the whole time. I tied the tarp myself. I even checked it before leaving. So I don't understand when he got in there, or how long he was already in there while I was driving. We cleaned what we could, or tried to. My friend ended up throwing some of the stuff out, especially the tarp. I left not long after that. I didn't stay the night, I just wanted to be home. That thud, if that was him moving, then he was already back there before I even got on the highway, which means he was in that truck while I was loading it, and I just didn't see him. I wasn't really planning on being out that late, that's the thing. It wasn't like one of those nights where you know you're going to be driving around at like 2 in the morning. It just kind of ended up like that. I had stayed longer than I meant to at my friend Mo's place. I used to take this back road home instead of the highway. It shaved off like 15 minutes, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're tired, it feels like it matters. Plus, there's less traffic, so you're not dealing with trucks or people riding your bumper. It runs through this kind of rural stretch. Sometimes you don't see another car for a while. There's a gas station near the turnoff, then just trees, open land. Some parts have fences, some parts don't. There's a couple of dirt pull-offs, but they're not really marked, just spots where people must stop sometimes. Maybe trucks. It was cold that night. You could feel it through the car a little. I had the heat on low because if it's too warm I get sleepy, and I already wasn't exactly wide awake. The road was empty. I think I saw one car coming the other direction earlier. I was 10 minutes into that road, and I saw this car, parked on the side, like halfway off the road. The headlights weren't on, but I could see it because of my own lights coming up on it. I slowed down, not even because I thought something was wrong, just because when you see a car on the side of the road that late, you kind of notice it more. Like your brain goes, okay, what's that? As I got closer, I saw the driver's door was open. That was kind of odd because if someone pulled over, usually they either stay in the car or they close the door if they leave. I didn't see anyone around it. I slowed down more, like really slow now. I was looking around the sides of the road. I thought the person had gone into the woods to use the bathroom. That was my first thought. There's no buildings around there, nowhere else to go. I almost kept driving, but pulled over a little ahead of the car. I didn't want to block anything or make it awkward if someone came back. I just kind of stopped on the shoulder. I was thinking like, should I even get out? Because it's late, I don't know who it is, and it's not like I'm some kind of roadside help. But at the same time, if someone actually needed help and I just drove off, that would feel kind of messed up. So I turned my music off completely, like I reached over and just shut it off so I could hear better. I got out of my car, walked back toward the other car. I kept looking around as I was walking, like scanning the sides of the road again, but still nothing. Nothing that would suggest someone was nearby. When I got closer, I could see inside a little better. The interior light wasn't on, so it was mostly dark, but I could make out the seats and the steering wheel. No signs of anything messed up, like no broken glass or anything like that. I took a step closer to the open door and kind of leaned a little to look inside better. Still nothing. No keys in the ignition that I could see, no phone sitting out, nothing obvious. At that point, I started thinking the person had actually left, like it broke down and they started walking to get help or something. It didn't really explain the door being open, but I guess people do weird things when they're stressed. I was about to just turn around and go back to my car. I had already kind of decided there wasn't anything I could do. And I heard this, like branches, coming from the tree line on the opposite side of the road, off to the side. I turned my head toward it, and that's when I saw her. She came out from between the trees pretty fast. It caught me off guard because I hadn't seen anything there before, and suddenly she was just there. She didn't look at me, even though I was standing right there next to the car. She just moved straight toward it, like I wasn't even part of the situation. She got into the driver's seat and pulled the door shut. I stepped back. It all happened kind of fast, like I didn't have time to process it. The car started immediately. I don't remember seeing keys before, but suddenly the engine turned over like everything was already set. The headlights came on. I had to squint for a second. I stood there, watching. She didn't say anything, didn't even look at me. The car pulled back onto the road and drove off, like a normal departure. It didn't really make any sense. Maybe she was in the woods for some reason and came back. It's weird, felt off. I started walking. I had taken a few steps and I heard voices. Definitely people. Coming from the same area she came out of. I stopped walking. 2 men stepped out from the tree line. They weren't close at first, like 20 or 30 feet away. They were both shirtless. That's the first thing I noticed, and it immediately didn't make sense. It wasn't warm enough for that, especially not just standing out there. And neither of them had shoes on either, which I noticed a second later when they stepped forward a bit. One of them had something in his mouth. I couldn't tell what it was. It wasn't like a cigarette or anything small like that. It looked bigger, like he was holding something between his teeth. They both looked at me, not in a normal way, just staring. And then one of them called out, asking what I was doing. Kind of flat, like he wasn't really asking, just saying the words. I didn't know what to say. So I just said something vague back, like I thought the car was broken down and I was checking if someone needed help. It was just whatever came out. They didn't respond. They stood there, looking at me. And for some reason that felt worse than if they had said something back. I started walking again. My car suddenly felt a lot farther away than it had a minute ago. I could feel them watching me the whole time. I didn't turn around again, but I knew they hadn't moved much. I got to my car and reached for the handle, and I heard one of them move closer behind me. My hand was already on the car handle, and I remember it slipping a little because my hands felt weirdly cold all of a sudden. I opened the door and got in quickly. As soon as I sat down, I locked it. I finally looked up through the side mirror, instead of turning fully around, and I could see one of them had moved a few steps closer. The other one was still near the trees. They weren't saying anything now. That's the part that stuck with me, just how quiet they were. You'd think if someone asked you a question like that, they'd keep talking or react, but they just watched. I started the car, didn't sit there thinking about it. I kept my eyes forward mostly. The guy who had stepped closer turned his head a little, and the thing in his mouth was still there. I still couldn't tell what it was. I thought it was like a piece of cloth or something. I pulled out onto the road and started driving. I didn't want to lose control or anything like that, but after a few seconds, I pressed down more on the gas. I drove the rest of the way home without stopping, and kept trying to make it make sense. Like, maybe those people were just out there for some reason. Maybe they lived nearby, but I don't remember any houses that close to that spot. Maybe the woman knew them and had been in the woods with them and came back to her car. It all technically works if you force it to. But the way she ignored me? If someone saw a stranger standing next to their car in the middle of the night, you'd at least react. You'd hesitate, or ask something, or look confused. She didn't do any of that. It was like I wasn't even there. My friend, Mo, said, "Yeah, I know that area." He told me that a couple months back there had been something going on around there. Just local stuff. There were a few reports of people finding abandoned cars along that same stretch. I asked if anyone had gone missing, and he said not officially, like nothing confirmed. But there were rumors, you know how that goes. People talking about stuff, connecting things that might not even be connected.